to hire right away and take the risk. And I'll tell you what, I hired wrong at first, which a lot of my people can attest to. But still, there are a lot of people who haven't hired enough or haven't implemented enough people into the business to offload their work for them to do the most highly leveraged to get the biggest ROI out of their efforts.
Leaders Talk Season 2.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is your favorite time of the week. It's my favorite time of the week. Yep, it's time for Leaders Talk. And today I am, as always, your intrepid host, Andrew Dupie, head of communications here at Leaders Brands and host of the Leaders Talk podcast. And today I'm going to try not to geek out too much because he was a Dallas Cowboy and everybody knows where I'm from. But today I have with me Cory Procter. So Cory, if you didn't know, he's the founder and CEO of Capital Wealth Management. And that's a firm that's dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and business owners protect, grow, and transition their wealth with intention. He's drawing on more than a decade of experience in wealth management and leadership, as well as a 6-year career in the NFL. And what Cory does is he brings a rare combination of discipline, strategy, and heart to every client relationship. Cory's perspective on wealth is grounded in personal experience. He knows what it means to perform under pressure, make high-stakes decisions, and lead with purpose. These are the same skills that he honed during his years as an offensive lineman with the Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, and Detroit Lions. And that same mindset now drives his work with business owners navigating complex financial transactions. In addition to leading Pro Capital, Cory is a dynamic speaker. He's a podcast host. Love that. He's a board member of Magistry Outdoors, a nonprofit that mentors fatherless youth and single mothers. He's also passionate about growth in every sense, financial, personal, and spiritual. Cory lives in Trophy Club, Texas, with his wife, Megan, an estate planning attorney, and their 3 children, Grace, Hank, and Faith. And when he's not inviting clients or speaking at events, he enjoys spending time outdoors with his family and helping others design those legacies that last. And most important for us, not last, but absolutely not least, he is the author of Built Not Broke, The Pursuit of Resilient Wealth. There it is right there. We'll be talking about that today. Cory, welcome. I mean, that's an impressive CV to start out with, but maybe just maybe fill out a few gaps or just elaborate a bit on your story for our audience while we get started.
Sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Andrew. Most people know me from my time in the NFL with Cowboys, Dolphins, and the Lions. But a lot of people didn't know my history or my financial history or like what things that I was involved in my life. And so I had a car accident early on in high school or my junior year of high school. Rear ended a lady. She filed a suit, and a year later, my mom and my stepdad filed for bankruptcy and lost the house and the vehicles. And so when I came into the NFL, that's kind of what my main concern was. And it was just kind of like, if anybody else, you kind of have like you can't have a testimony without the test. Yeah. And so I had this problem early on. I think it really created a healthy fear for like the problems that could happen. Right. And so I'm very much a believer. My faith is a big part of my life. So basically, money is a tool. And it's good. You can be used for good or evil. And if you're a good giver, you get more money, you're an amazing giver. If you're a big jerk, you get a bunch of money, you're going to become a bigger jerk. And it's pure and simple. It's a megaphone for who you are. And so, but I do know this is if you are meant for good and you've stewarded it and you've created something of value and really good in this world. And obviously everybody covets money and aspires to be a millionaire or have some other dollar in the bank account. There are just as many evil pursuits of that dollar in your account than there are good. And so I'm basically like, I believe in everybody's ability to go build their own castle. Right. I love this. My wife is my queen. My kids are they're my prince and princesses. And I want to build this castle up as big as I can, but I'm not interested in some thief coming in the back door that I left open. And so, that's kind of like how I geared that. And so, I'm thankful for it. But went to University of Montana, go Grizz. And we stayed here in Texas because we love it and made some amazing friends and amazing faith and businesses. And God's kind of brought it a whole different route that I didn't expect, but super thankful for it. So we're in a very equally stressful but sweet part of life, which I'm sure, like if you got kids or anybody's got kids that are, three under, that are 11 and under, and you're trying to run a business, there's a lot that's happening. Plus, you got
Yeah.
if you got a dumb Irish
I can
doodle,
imagine. I can imagine it's a lot of at once.
yeah. So it's good, but we're pretty thankful for where we're at.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit then about kind of before we get to the book, just about what your idea, what's the central idea of Pro Capital? I mean, what are you helping your clients with when they walk in the door and say, Cory, what can you do for me to help me build that resilient wealth that you talk about in the book?
Sure. This is not just born from my story, but it was born from what I saw in the industry. So as like an end user, as a client, and then as I got into the industry, I see it blatantly across industry, the whole financial industry, was that most asset managers, money managers, financial planners, whatever you want to call them, they were only focused on the money, and that was it. And the problem with that was that if there was if there was an event that could potentially come wipe it all away, and mind you, they happen fast. That happened fast in my life. If
Yeah.
there was an event that could potentially wipe it all away, no performance or plan means anything at that point. It's just a number. And if you got a bunch of the money in the bank, there's that much bigger number to lose. And so where we separate ourselves is we serve entrepreneurs primarily, minimum million in assets to manage for us. But we come in and we want to manage the risk side of the balance sheet. So basically, I'm coming in. If we love to grow our wealth, every one of us loves to make more money, but none of us is really looking for the train wrecks that are surrounding it, the blind spots. And so when we come in, we're looking for those blind spots. So like a classic example, we had a great couple come on this last year, partner of an engineering firm. And, they had come from a big box financial place across the street. And we're like, hey, I'd like better returns, but I also don't know. I feel like I've reached the cap at where I'm at, this is typical of what's going on. And like, meaning they love where they came from, but there's some things that are off slightly. And, and so, okay, we come in, some basic questions and find out, they have 5 million sitting in the bank. They haven't done any tax mitigation. They haven't done any asset protection. So it's my car wreck story now is potentially liable. They walk outside of the door, get in a car wreck, and somebody sues them. That 5 million's gone, and they had no estate plan. So they were my age, mid 40s, young family, young kids, and same incident. If they walk out and get a car accident and die, they didn't even have guardianship papers in line for their babies. So
Yeah.
that's a car wreck waiting to happen because essentially CPS has got to come take the kids, and the judge has to assign custody to one of the grandparents, assuming, and they're going to fight over them. So, in that situation, especially if you're a parent, you're like, I want them to go where I want them to go. I never account, and probability has it where, I'm going to live till 80 plus, but we just had two clients in the last 7 months that passed from cancer. One was 58, one was mid 40s like me. And I'm not interested in, if that event happens in my life, that my family is left in disarray. And meaning I didn't have my stuff in order, that it was my responsibility. And so, whether I knew about it or not, and a lot of people just don't know what they don't know, but they
Right.
come in and that's the first thing we look for is where's the train wreck? Where's the door open?
Yeah. And that's just something that a lot of people have as a blind spot. You're right. You mentioned blind spots because you know when you're on a successful roll, when things are going well, when everything is good, you don't think about the car accident. You don't think about the heart attack. You don't think about or even things that are outside of even all those controls. I mean, we've lived through 2008, the financial crisis. We've lived through 2020 with the pandemic, and if those things combine with multiple others, you're right. There's not a lot you can do if you don't prepare in advance. It's almost like, I mean, from what you're saying, it's almost like you're talking about preventative health.
Yeah. Yeah. If I don't work out, I don't eat right. Right. And I'm a heavy
Yeah.
smoker my whole life. My probability just went sky high on like having lung cancer and having a shortened lifespan. Right. And so, if that's the case, we need to take care of our financial health. so it's buttoned up in case something happens. And so, that could be just taxes. It could be putting away more or not. Like a common one we run into is the business is the biggest asset on the balance sheet, which is fine, but we still got to put money away
Mm.
to insulate us away from the business because legislation changes, new laws come in, and it wipes out entire industries at times. So, if we're not doing something like that, even if it's a healthy business that's strong, we're putting ourselves in potentially a dire situation where somebody else is knocking out the wind from our sails, and so we have to manage away from that to make sure that you're taken care of, your wife's taken care of, and that is. And I'll tell you what, even more so, earlier on in the industry, and I'm sure anybody can relate to this, whatever industry you're in. You want to be convicted in where you're at, but there's still a level. If somebody comes back at you and says, I don't need that recommendation or whatever, there's still a level of like, shoot, should I recommend that again? If that's the case, right?
Mm.
Well, um, after you've walked through the most um, sensitive times with people, you become more convicted on where you're at.
Yeah.
And like I've even gotten into it with attorneys where, they're like, well, I don't think you should do an estate plan or a revocable trust. You should just do a will or whatever. And I immediately can come back into them. I'm like, well, I know you've never been through this experience now.
Mm.
Because if you have,
Yeah.
it would have scarred you enough where you were like, that's never happening again. And
Yeah.
and that's really like how we learn, right? You either learn on purpose or on accident, and on accident hurts. And those are the scars, the biggest ones that stick with us.
Yeah.
And so I would much rather learn from wisdom where I can talk to an Andrew Dupie, maybe who has 20, 30, 40 years experience over me, where I can take that in. And I listen to that on purpose, right?
Yeah.
There's sound mind or sound counsel in somebody who seeks wisdom versus just wants to hear their own opinion. And folly comes to the opinion.
Yeah, and that's hard for some people, though. I mean, especially if they're successful. There's a lot of there's a lot of people that I've done this for years, and they're one of the things I continually hear. There's a lot of people that get stuck in their ways and say, "I have done this right. I know better. I don't need all of the advice that I can get." So, maybe is this kind of why you might have decided to write a book to try and maybe illuminate some of these things for people like that?
Sure. So the book, what's nice about the book is kind of a low level cost for somebody to go implement it themselves.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, you're a self manager, you want to go do it yourself. There's been two occasions in my entire financial career now of anybody coming to my office where they were buttoned up and they looked great. And those were meaning self managers. Like they had everything that looked awesome. They were really, they were only looking for maybe some like portfolio management or somebody to help take over the situation when they pass to hand over to their wife who didn't have as much of an affinity to managing the finances. And so, so like it's really rare that somebody is actually all buttoned up and taken care of,
Yeah.
even if they're at another financial institution or advisor or something, because our industry doesn't look for these problems. They look for money management, which is great. We want to manage as much AUM as the next guy, but if that's the number one focus, so we're just trying to grab the money, then people feel that for one, and then two, that's when the blind spots come in because now
Yeah.
now it becomes problems.
Yeah, and that that's it, I like that because that is an interesting way of looking at it. I mean, especially from someone that's been in the NFL. I know that you've probably heard stories about people that were in there, made a lot of money, didn't manage it very well. I mean, as a teacher, I run into a lot of kids that are in high school. They're starting to make their career. They're getting recruited by where I live, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and they think, okay, once I make those steps beyond, I'm going to be fine. But then they don't manage their money well when they do make that kind of success. Did some of that, did seeing some of that in your time in the NFL maybe uh, give you a little even more than than the car, or not more than the car wreck, but along with the car wreck, kind of make you see some of the problems that people have with management and being able to manage finance and financial wealth.
Yeah, no. So, like, I think the car wreck kind of set an initial base, right, of a
Yeah.
feeling necessarily. And man, I don't want that to happen again. It was kind of like this, just feeling as a kid. And then when I came in the NFL, I made minimum 5 out of my 6 years. My signing bonus was $8,000 when I signed with the Detroit Lions in the practice initially, right? And but then I'm seeing guys throw, 10, 15, 20 grand down on a whack playing dice in the locker room. And I remember Steve Mariucci, our head coach at the time, coming and trying to put kibosh on it, and like no more gambling in the locker room. Right, guys are just running to the ATM. This isn't when it wasn't limited, but um, but then we go, and you start seeing like the extreme spending for some guys, and
Right.
and I'm walking around, and thankfully I had relatively frugal parents, and seeing what happened with them obviously affected me, but like I always kind of had a frugal mindset, but I would see this. I'm like, what's the purpose of all this? And then you would see just the destruction. It would just go away. And so, um, and then on my side now, on the actual the advisor or money management side, where I can see the behaviors intimately, where before, we might have been just buddies, and I saw the spending, but I didn't see the dollars in the bank account, right? Or now, I can see that stuff. And what happens, look, I talked to a guy a couple months ago who's still trying to play, but he had over 33 million in career earnings, has nothing left. And so the common thing there, and this is common, this is not just an athlete thing, that the NFL and pro sports is just a microcosm of life, which is why it gets so much attention, right? But this is the same across the board in our country and across the globe, I'd say, is like there's either an aversion because I don't know what I'm looking at, or maybe I say it's boring, or I never got math, or I never this, whatever. I never was that good at math, but I just started paying attention to it. That's all I did. And because I started paying attention, I can start asking stupid questions. and so and legit, and it's funny because, I tell the story about Bill Parcells, our Hall of Fame coach of the Cowboys, was I could take coaching, and he used to call me Grizz for Montana Grizzlies. He goes, "You're pretty good, Grizz. You're pretty smart too. You're no genius, but you're pretty smart." And I cleaned up the language just so you're aware right there. But
I'm familiar enough with him to know what he probably really said.
But the truth of the matter is like, one, if you just pay attention and apply it and take the mental reps and trying to really remember this stuff and commit it to memory, you'll get it. Anybody can get it. It just might take them a little longer than others. But you don't have to be any genius or any like math scholar to get this stuff, right? But if you put your hands in this stuff and you take some accountability for your own money, you'll start being able to ask some stupid question initially that turned into a whole lot smarter questions. And so that's all I did. So anyways, with the league, it was basically, I've never had these big checks coming in before, right? Hey, okay, maybe I need some help and I need a CPA, an advisor, or an attorney, whatever. And the problem is because if I, as a player, or I, as the owner of those funds, don't pay attention to it at all, it leaves opportunity for other people to come in, right? And so that's what happens is people are like, hey, a lot of thieves in that business. Well, yeah, but you let them in. Right. And so like take some accountability on your shoulders. And yeah, you may be immature and young and not know very much, but take some accountability on your shoulders and at least try to look at the numbers. And I'm like, is this your money or not? And so, I've had that with lots of guys, and unfortunately they're just immature. But that's also why I like the business owners a lot, is because typically if you had to build your business, all the people that we work with, largely, we only have a couple second and third gen owners, but largely they had to build it out of their kitchen or out of their garage. And so because of that, you saw the low, nothing cash flow months, and then until you saw it become super healthy. And that's because you did that and you're able to invest a little bit and save some money or put some money away, you had some level of respect or management that you could have by yourself until you realized like, hey, I needed someone a little more equipped to help me manage this and contract this out. Or I just need to get somebody to level up my game. And so, that's why I like them, is because there was at least an initial respect where they could manage a degree of it. And and then they can come back with a whole lot better questions to fire, which, by the way, makes me a lot better at my job. And my staff. So that was really cool because I get asked hard questions, which I don't always know the answer to right away. I'm like, I need to study up. I need to bone up on that material. So that's fun to me because those more complex situations where we get like a taxable estate where we have somebody 15 to 30 million above, we got to start bringing in more extravagant estate plans and layering people's lives. It adds more complexity, but it's more fun.
Yeah.
So, because then you can go detail and explanation, and that's when like people really lean in, and I love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I asked that question because again, from the time I've been here, I know that even business owners sometimes can overextend, especially if when they have a lot of early success. I've talked to so many, if you watch the show, people that came in and said I had great success, my business went off the rails, I was a millionaire overnight, and then I lost it because I extended too far in one direction, or I got a lawsuit that came to me that I didn't know was going to come by somebody I worked with, and it's always that story of got successful fast, overextended, and then something happened, something out there I didn't see, which is why I think that your book is so important because you're kind of starting to bring into people's cognizance that this can happen even if they haven't hit that bump in the road yet.
Well, and that's the hope. It's right. So
Yeah.
like my hope is that either you take action or you had somebody, whether it's us or something else, and you try to start asking the questions to professionals to help you. Right now, okay, great. We want all the clients in the world, but we want people to start thinking a little different when it comes to your money. Is we want to grow it, want to invest it. We got to invest for freedom. That's all good, but I can't have it exposed and available for somebody else to come grab. And so, classic examples. I met a guy right down the street from our office. He's not even a client, but he sold his company for 80 million. And he asked me what I was doing after football, and I was sharing him my story a little bit, what we're talking about today. And he goes, "That's funny. I'm in my second lawsuit right now. First lawsuit was our Labradoodle bit my son's girlfriend in the face, and it was only 4,000 worth of medical bills. She still looked beautiful, no cosmetics needed, and the family waited till 2 months before the statute of limitations was up to file, and ended up taking him to court in front of a jury, and which was a whole other mess. Luckily, they only settled for 3 million on this deal, so they settled for 3 million. Okay, well." He only had 500,000 even in liability coverage with his insurance company. So, all right, he had 500,000. They didn't want to pay the 500,000, so he was in a second lawsuit to try to get the 500,000 from them. And but like principle over everything, because what happened was the attorney basically got him on the stand and said, "Hey, you're not too hard to Google. Did you really just sell your company for 80 million?" Which, when you ask that kind of question, what did that just do to the jury? When they're deciding what to do, you got tons of money, Andrew. What are you doing? Give this poor girl some money.
You just tainted them very badly. Yeah.
Right. And so it's just that type of stuff. You're like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I paid for her medical bill. She's totally fine. And the principle is like, not that I have a lot of money. What if I had only 300 grand? The whole principle is that, like, if somebody were to come after you, we have over 40 million civil suits filed a year in this country. And that was 2017 data, by the way. And then business owners have a higher probability of getting sued. So, like, whether it's a lawsuit, an estate planning, or a tax situation, we're trying to manage all of this basically before you make a big decision in your life. One, we got to lay the plan out ahead of time. But as we move along, people's lives change. We buy new assets, we add or take away from the balance sheet, and a lot of that stuff isn't managed. So we got to manage that stuff, and it's poorly managed. And you would be blown away that people 100 million plus in estates aren't managed.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, being I work in the industry I do, I wouldn't be that surprised, but it's crazy that it isn't. But Cory, I mean, kind of as we wrap up things a little bit here, you've shared some good information with us. I think we've whetted people's appetite for the book. We don't want to give them too much. Want them to go out there and buy this thing. But what's kind of a golden nugget? Maybe something to wrap things up. Maybe something we didn't cover. Just something that our audience can take away from this before they actually pick up the book.
Sure. I mean, I'll give you the book in short. It shares my story, right? My testimony, like things that I've gone through that were either issues that affected me And then also I talk about my wins. So like really what I wanted to do was set a system. I call it the Vault method. And it's a 5 pillar system that you can go apply to your life. And I try to fit everything into that acronym that I could. It's vision and values, asset protection and acceleration, unshakable systems for investing, legacy and lifetimes, which is basically anybody above the estate exemption, that 15 to 30 million plus, because we have more complex planning scenarios there. And then the last one was taxes and time. And in that situation, not just taxes, hey, we got to mitigate that stuff, but I'll tell you a big one that I see in business owners today, even people that are crazy performing, they're not doing, and I'm not talking about time in compound interest. I'm talking about in time leveraged human capital. And so I'll talk about compound interest slightly, but human capital, I was challenged early on in my business by my mentor to hire right away and take the risk. And I'll tell you what, I hired wrong at first, which a lot of my people can attest to. But still, there are a lot of people who haven't hired enough or haven't implemented enough people into the business to offload their work for them to do the most highly leveraged to get the biggest ROI out of their efforts. And so you hear Elon Musk actually talk about this during an interview one time. I think it was Tesla was set to do it was some crazy number, right? I don't even remember what it was, but it was a big number. So he was breaking down the time value of that. Basically, a time value of his decision making. He goes, if I make one or two good decisions for the company, that could easily be several hundred million in revenue for that year. And he's like, so my time for an hour could be valued up to 100 million, right? And so that's a great example to me of he's not doing paperwork. Okay. He's not sitting there. He's outlining the mastermind of this thing. And he had to step up through that process along the way, but he's not doing the paperwork in the business to make those moves. One small tweak in his life or his decision making for a company is going to end up in an explosive number up or down. And so basically prioritizing and leveraging your time effectively for you to get the most out of your business and life. So to me, don't mind this. I got my baby girl pup coming up here.
There we go.
But for me, it's this. My biggest things are my faith, my family, and my business. And so I want my business to be there to serve those two other things that are above it in hierarchy, right? She agrees. And so today, this morning, we normally have our Monday team meetings at the office. And look, I was able to change it up where Mackenzie Meredith handles the team meeting at the office because our middle boy Hank had his graduation, his kindergarten graduation at school. So I'm going to prioritize that. Well, guess what? I got hands at the office to be able to serve it. So I hire and freely give up margin in my make to do that, to give me that. Well, guess what? They end up being a whole lot better at the business than I do in some aspects. And so, great. I want people that are better than me, so I can essentially free myself to go find higher returns. You want to say hi? We're in a podcast, so you just say hi. This is my baby. This is my oldest. She's going to.
We have new stars on the podcast, Cory. I think you've been outshone.
I love you. She's going for a doubleheader softball. I'll see you in a little bit. Okay?
Well, Cory, we'll let you get to it. But before we do, how can our audience find out more about you?
Go to CoryProcter.com, or you can get the book on there. You can follow me on LinkedIn or social media. Go to ProCapitalTX.com if you're interested in my firm's service. Those are easiest places to go check it out. And man, I love connecting with people. And that's it. Go check me out. Let's go.
Perfect. All right. The book is Built Not Broke, The Pursuit of Resilient Wealth. Thank you so much for being on, Cory. If we got another opportunity, I'd love to have you on again, see how it does for you.
Awesome. Hey, well, we hit Amazon bestseller, so we're doing something right.
Awesome. All right, Cory, you take care.
Thanks, Andrew.